Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 248. This is our Week 14 NFL Picks podcast, joined once again by Jacob Camenker from NBC Sports Boston. Jacob, how are you, and how's your Week 13?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying a very snowy day up here in New England, so that's been a lot of fun. I was absolutely terrible in Week 13. I had my worst week of the season. I went 5-11, which is worse than my Week 1 total. I lost all my big unit plays. Jets and Bengals was terrible. Then Cardinals Rams was even worse. Then I made a panic bet on the Patriots, which was very stupid. So yeah, it can't get much worse for me. So looking to bounce back this week. How about you?
I went 9-7 overall. Had a slightly winning week. I just feel like I just think that I made some bad picks. Like I was reviewing what I was doing, and I think I made some of my selections like I was too confident in some of my selections, and then some of the picks I felt confident in, and I didn't pick them. Like I talked during last week's episode about how I thought the Jaguars would quit because they were eliminated from the playoffs, and so I didn't bet Tampa for some reason. Same thing with the Panthers. The Panthers I thought might quit because they were eliminated, and I didn't bet Washington for some reason, and that cost me. But it's kind of I think it's important to learn from mistakes and try to get better. So I'm looking forward to this week's slate. I like it a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid slate. Last week's slate, I was kind of most games I was either like really gung ho about, or I didn't want anything to do with them. This week, there's a lot more plays that I feel like, yeah, this is going to be good. There are also some public dogs I feel like we can really fade this week that are pretty good picks overall anyway. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I think we'll have some pretty big plays.
Yeah, just by saying that, I get the feeling that that you're going to be with me on some of my high unit plays. So we'll see. I have my pick of the month this week, so I'm excited about that. So yeah, like I said, I like the slate a lot. I liked it last week too at this time, but then some stuff happened, like T.Y. Hilton went down, so that kind of ruined the Colts pick. And I still went with the Colts for 3 units, and we had that block kick for a touchdown. That was frustrating. But yeah, hopefully this week we'll have better luck and better injury luck. I feel like the past 2 weeks kind of gotten screwed with injuries. Like Alshon Jeffrey ahead of that Seattle Eagles game. Yeah, hopefully this will be better. Quick question before we start from TJ: do the Eagles press the panic button? I'm from Philly, so I guess I'll take this first. I think that I don't think they need to. They have such an easy schedule the rest of the way. They play the Redskins and Giants twice, and the Cowboys. So they should be able to win those games. So I think they'll be fine. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think they should make the playoffs in that horrible division this year. I was pretty bummed by their loss to Miami, so I'm kind of close to pressing the panic button. But like you said, the schedule's just too good moving forward to really doubt them. And I think Doug Peterson's had some bad weeks recently, but if they get healthy and get Jordan Howard back, they should be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. First game's the Thursday night game. It's not really like a normal Thursday night game where we have teams coming off short rest. These teams both played on Thanksgiving, so it's nice to see the NFL finally getting something right schedule-wise for these games. This is Cowboys at the Bears. This line opened up Cowboys -3. There's still some threes, but there's 2.5s as well. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Bears in this one. I'm not super confident in this one, so I'm probably not going to bet it. I just think that, hypothetically, Dallas has the better offense. They have a solid defense, so they should be able to beat the Bears. But Jason Garrett's such a bad head coach. I feel like the team knows that Jerry Jones is kind of quitting on him. I don't know if the team will quit on him necessarily because they still have a shot at the playoffs. I'm reading into Jerry Jones's comments as basically thinking like, hey, Jason Garrett is probably gone if they don't get to the playoffs. So I don't know what the players think. Do they want to fight for his job or what? But just where so much I was reading your site earlier, and it looked like there was a lot of public money on Dallas and some sharp money on the Bears. So I'm going with the Bears as my pick in this one for office pool purposes. But after almost getting burned by Mitch Trubisky last week, that Bears-Lions game we actually both hit on despite being opposite sides because I locked in at Bears -3 and you had Lions +6. So landed right in the middle there. That was my favorite game of the week because everyone was happy. Went downhill very quickly. But anyway, I'm on the Bears here. Not going to bet it. Just I think there's not much to like in this game.
Yeah, so I was wondering why the Sharps were on the Bears, and Chris W. posted this on my Facebook page. So I haven't looked at the injury report yet. I usually do that Wednesday night or Thursday morning. Tyron Smith is dealing with an Achilles injury, and Zach Martin injured. He has a couple injuries he's dealing with. So there's a chance that both might be out. And if that's the case, I'm definitely going to be betting the Bears. We've seen the Cowboys with poor offensive line play earlier this season. When they were playing the Jets, they were missing La'el Collins and Tyron Smith, and they lost outright to the Jets. So I think if they're missing two linemen against front with Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd, and like the Bears still have good players, even though Akeem Hicks is out. I'm definitely going to be on the Bears. I'm going to bet the Bears. If those guys play, then I probably will stay away from this. I'm probably going to be on Chicago. As you mentioned, yeah, there's a ton of public money on Dallas, so I don't want to bet into that. But yeah, the offensive line injuries is so huge.
Yeah, and I actually also wasn't really aware of the offensive line injuries. I did not check that injury report. Thursday night injury reports are always weird because they technically haven't practiced, so I try not to read too much into that. But if both of them are playing, I may put a unit or two on this game. But the big thing I learned last week is avoid large pools of public money, which you have been preaching constantly throughout the year. So if I'm ever torn this week, it's going to be let's fade the public. So I think we're on the right side of that at least.
Yeah, so someone always has to win, right? It's either going to be the public or the house in these lopsided games, and I'd rather side with the house. Not always, like it's not always going to be, like the public's on this side, I'm going to be on the other side, no matter what. Like, but I think it's something that should be factored in at least. We have TJ says Trubisky has better stats than Brady this year. I don't care what stats they have. If you were to say, like, if the Bears offered Trubisky in a trade to Brady right now, would the Patriots do it? No.
Oh.
So of course not. So yeah, I don't see how that's even like it's kind of crazy. Someone's asking what online sportsbook do I use? I use several. Five Dimes and Bookmaker are my favorites, but I also use BetUS, Bovada, FanDuel, and DraftKings. I think I might be missing one. Oh, Heritage, which is really good too. I know you use Bovada, right?
Yeah, I mostly do Bovada because I keep all my money in one place. But I also like Five Dimes and Bookmaker a lot. Bookmaker is definitely a good one. I look at the lines on there a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. I like how you can build your own spreads on those books too. The next game, starting with the Sunday slate, Ravens at the Bills. This line open up Ravens -6.5. It's down to 5.5 in some places, with some sixes still available. So it looks like sharp money's on Buffalo, but there's a ton of money coming in on Baltimore from the public. So who do you like in this game?
I love the Bills in this one. And one of the big reasons for it is if you just look at the schedule makers, they've screwed the Ravens. So the Ravens are coming off a clutch last-minute win against one of the NFL's best teams in the 49ers. Now they're playing the Bills, who have been solid this year. They're still a bit overrated, but that win against Dallas was legit, and Josh Allen played the best game of his pro career. Now the Ravens are playing them on the road in Buffalo in December, and then have to turn around and play the Jets in 4 days. So that's not easy. That's not an easy turnaround. I know the Jets don't exactly inspire fear in anyone, but that's 2 games coming off of an emotional win that are pretty close together. Meanwhile, the Bills are coming off extra time to prepare because they played on Thanksgiving. So Sean McDermott should have a game plan ready to at least slow down Lamar Jackson. And I think at the very least, the Bills' defense has the personnel needed to slow the passing game. They may have more trouble against the run because they've allowed 6 100-plus yard rushing games in 6 of their last 8 games. So that's not ideal, but I think the Bills will keep this close. I looked at the weather. It's not going to be as much of an impact as I was hoping it might be in Buffalo. This time of year, you never know when snow might come, but it's looking pretty clear. But I'm going to be on the Bills here for at least 2 units +6. I think the Ravens will be distracted coming off the big win. I don't know if Buffalo wins outright, but if they get out to a big lead and Lamar Jackson has to make a comeback and we're getting 6, I really like that.
Yeah, me too. I like the Bills a lot. Actually, a little bit more than you do. I'm going to bet them 3 or 4 units. I think the spread's way too high. And one of the mistakes I made last week was not betting the Niners. I like the Niners. I thought the spread is too high, but I was too afraid to lose money on Lamar Jackson again. And I think that's the sentiment that most people had. The spread was inflated. You had to bet a couple extra points to get Jackson. And, the sportsbooks were tired of losing money on Jackson, so they inflated the spread and people were still betting it. And I think they're doing the same thing here. I think the spread's too high. If you look at the DVOA numbers, it says Buffalo should be +3. My numbers say Buffalo +1.5, but I think I might be a little too high on the Bills. But it still should be in the +3, +4 range. And you talked about the scheduling issues. Like that's a big deal. They just had a very physical game against the Niners. They have to play in 4 days. I don't think they're going to be necessarily very focused on the Bills, whereas the Bills could be like, this is a very important game for them, kind of clinches playoff berth for them, and they're still in play for the division. So I think the Bills could make a statement here. I know they made a statement on Thanksgiving, but just beating Lamar Jackson, I think would be a big deal. And, I like their linebackers. Their linebackers are very athletic. They should be able to, you can't stop Jackson, but maybe limit him. Like maybe he won't get 100 rushing yards. Maybe he'll get like 50 to 75. And so they could slow him down a little bit. And then Josh Allen's playing very well. So I think the Bills could win outright, but I think the most likely result is Baltimore winning by 3 or 4. So, I like the Bills quite a bit.
Yeah, it just seems like you said, the spread's just a bit too high, and it's time to capitalize on the inflating of the Lamar Jackson lines, which I did not do last week either.
Yeah. Kenny, my old podcast partner, says we both hate our money because we're taking the Bills. Kenny, you're not supposed to be listening to handicapping and picks podcast, so don't get in trouble. Okay. But we'll do our fantasy podcast later in this week. All right, next game's Redskins at the Packers. This line opened up Packers -14.5. It's down to 13. About equal action on both teams. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Packers. I'm not crazy about the spread. I think it's probably just about right. But the big thing I want to look at is like the Redskins. Yeah, they've won 2 games in a row, so the public is starting to get more confidence in them. Maybe they're turning a corner with their young talent playing. But let's take a step back and look at who they beat. They beat the Jeff Driscoll-led Lions by a field goal that basically came because Quentin Dunbar was able to jump a route. And then they beat the Kyle Allen-led Panthers, a lead which they almost blew late in the game. And then they proceeded to, fire Ron Rivera after the game. So how motivated could they have been knowing that change was coming? Also, just a note on Rivera, I don't think it was smart of them to fire him in season. I feel like he's earned more respect than that. That is just my opinion on that, but that's beside the point. I just think the Packers, they haven't been good against the run. They allow 123 yards per game to running backs, or on the ground at least. But they should be able to pressure Dwayne Haskins, try to render the Redskins one-dimensional, and really expose the troubles the Redskins have had in the red zone. Because until last week, the Redskins in the red zone were not good at all. So, like I said, I don't love this spread, but this is a rookie playing at Lambeau Field. The Packers, they just beat the Giants pretty well. They should be able to do the same to the Redskins. So I'll be on them for maybe a unit. Maybe you can convince me to do a little bit more, but I just think the Redskins haven't played a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers either. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I might convince you to do a little bit less because I'm not going to bet this game, although I'm on Green Bay for office pool purposes. So I think, for the Redskins to cover this game, they're going to have to engage the Packers in a shootout, or they're going to have to control the clock with Darius Geis and Adrian Peterson, which I guess could happen. Green Bay isn't that strong against the run. So, if Geis breaks a long run, like a 60-yarder or something like he did last week, they could score a touchdown. And if they, like I said, if they control the clock, they can keep Rodgers off the field. So I think it's possible that the Redskins could hang the number. But it just feels like if the Packers want to, they could blow Washington out of the water because the Redskins secondary is just so bad. My only concern is that I don't know how focused Green Bay is going to be for this game. They have 2 divisional opponents coming up, Bears and Vikings. Not necessarily saying they're going to be focused for the Bears or anything because the Bears are just 6-6. But I don't know how seriously they're going to take Washington, and it just seems like the Redskins could maybe hang around if they break some long runs, and the Packers have blown some coverages. So a late touchdown for the Redskins is possible. I just think this number's too high. So I'm not betting this game, but I can understand why you'd want to bet the Packers.
Yeah, and I think you've convinced me. At most, I'll bet a unit on this one. The possibility of a backdoor cover, or the fact that, if the Redskins get off to a faster start and maybe they score an early touchdown, limit the Packers in the first half. That 13 number is going to be hard to get to. But I will be sticking with the Packers for sure. I just don't think the Redskins have the offensive firepower to stay with them in a shootout, which could happen. And I feel like they have to lose at some point again after battling two very bad quarterbacks and doing okay at best in both games.
Yeah, I think so. Wouldn't surprise me if they lose 45-0 at all. So DJ says I have to admit that I was wrong, dead wrong, not just wrong, dead wrong about the Dolphins not trying to win or tanking. Yeah, they traded away all their good players, so they're clearly were trying to tank. The problem is that Brian Flores might be the best coach in NFL history because he's winning with the worst talent, the worst roster I've ever seen in my life. I'm so excited to see what the Dolphins could do with Flores having actual talent. This team shouldn't have even won one game, let alone three. Like we were talking earlier in the year about them not even covering the spread, and they've won 3 games. It's unbelievable. It's I mean the organization was trying to tank. The players weren't, but they wouldn't have traded their good players if they weren't trying to tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a fantasy question. We'll answer this, but if you have any other fantasy questions, I guess save it to the end because this is a picks podcast. Pick 3, Gurley, White, Eckler, Singletary, Kareem Hunt. I guess Gurley, White, and Hunt. I don't know. That's a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I might go Gurley, White, Eckler, if we're being honest, because I don't know. I feel like he's been good all year. I don't trust the Chargers, though, but you could convince me to go with Hunt, too, because that matchup against the Bengals is really good. So I don't think you can really go particularly wrong with these dudes.
Yeah, for sure. So any fantasy questions at the end? And Kenny and I will be doing a fantasy podcast later on, too. So save it for that. All right, next game, Broncos at the Texans. Let's line open up. Texans -8. It's up to 9.5. Looks like equal action on both sides. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Broncos to cover this one. I think people are overreacting to the Texans win against the Patriots. The Patriots looked horrible against the Texans. We'll talk about that more later on. But they also had a bunch of dudes dealing with the flu. And, Houston, they didn't quite let the Patriots get back into it, but they had some issues of their own. So I think that the Broncos could come in with Drew Lock, be a little bit fired up after getting him a win in their first start in kind of ridiculous circumstances in the most Chargers way to lose ever. But the thing that I'm most worried about for the Texans in this is that they just beat the Patriots. Big, impressive, emotional win for Bill O'Brien and company. How focused are they going to be for this one? And the Broncos are better than their record says they are. Like, they're 4-8, but we had 2 games at the beginning of the year that they really could have had a chance at winning. So if they were 6-6, I'm not sure the spread is this high. So I think the Broncos are going to have things motivated. I think they have some talent that could possibly expose the weakness that Houston has on the back end. The Patriots couldn't gain separation, but I feel like Cortland Sutton, given how well he's been playing, will be able to. So I'm going to go the Broncos plus 9.5, probably do a couple units on that and just fade all this Texans magic because I feel like Bill O'Brien's got to come crashing down to earth at some point.
Yeah, I think he will too. He's not a very good coach. But the Texans do have Romeo Crennel, and a rookie quarterback going against Crennel is a little worrying, I think. That's the only issue I have with the Broncos here, because otherwise I agree. I think the spread's too high. So the advanced spread in this game was Texans -7.5. So it's moved up a bit. My number is Texans -7. Computer model says Texans -6, and DVOA says Texans -7. So this is above the key number of 7, and I think probably the most likely result is Texans winning by 7. Right. So I think the Broncos are the right side, but like I said, Crennel. Just having the advantage of a rookie quarterback. Like I remember last year when the Browns came into Houston and it looked like that number was too high too. And Baker Mayfield just self-destructed against Houston's defense. I know that Houston doesn't have J.J. Watt anymore or Jadeveon Clowney, but it seems like some of their other players are stepping up. Like Bradley Roby came back from injury. Justin Reed is a young safety who's improving. This Jacob Martin guy they have just came out of nowhere and just was double teamed the whole time in the second half by the Patriots. So it looks like the Texans are getting better. And I don't know if the numbers are factoring that in. But I do agree with what you said about the Texans motivation, like that the big win over the Patriots. Next week they have to play the Titans for the division. So it's kind of like a sandwich game. So I can't see them being very focused. But then again, Drew Lock could throw 2 pick sixes, and the Texans could win easily because of that.
Yeah, I guess I would maybe limit. Maybe I'll do 1 or 2 units instead of the 2. I still think this number is good, but like you said, Romeo Crennel is a really good defensive coordinator. Some of his best days came in New England when I was like 8. So those were fun days. But yeah, I could absolutely see a world where the Texans win this one ahead of their big game against the Titans. So yeah, there's reason to be cautious about this game. And Locke was an interception machine at times in college too. So maybe against a better team, he won't do as well.
Yeah, he played well last week at times, but then there were some glimpses of, kind of a disaster impending. Like he had that interception where he stared down a receiver, and then a couple of times, mostly in the second half, he did that young quarterback thing where they drift like 20 yards back in the pocket for some reason, and then they throw off their back foot. Like he did that a few times, and I was like, against a better defense, that's really going to kill him. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think I would take the Broncos. I'm not going to bet this game. But this next game, I'm definitely very high on. The 49ers at the Saints. Sign up -3. It's down to 2.5 in a lot of places. Tons of money coming in on the 49ers, so they're a public dog. We talked about public dogs earlier, so I imagine you're on the Saints, right?
I am on the Saints. Yeah, I love this spot for the Saints. I mean, 49ers are coming off a tough loss, and now they're, very much in the thick of the fight in the NFC for that 1 and 2 seed, because the Seahawks won as well. So now the West is looking really competitive. But the Saints are going to have a great home field advantage. They have a few extra days to prepare because they played on Thanksgiving. So some of their banged up players will be well rested. And Sean Payton is a great coach. So those extra 3 days are going to have a massive impact as they get ready to play the 49ers. The Saints' only home loss came against Atlanta. They were pressured relentlessly in that game. So if the 49ers do the same, it is possible that they could win this game. I think a lot of it depends on if Teron Armstead can play. He has missed at least last week, maybe the week before, with a high ankle sprain, and they've had to start Patrick Omameh at left tackle, which is not ideal because he's a guard. But the 49ers are a massive public dog, like you said, and the Saints, all they have to do is win by a field goal at home to cover this, and they're still a really good team, and they have the offensive weapons needed to match up well against this 49ers defense. If Breeze can get the ball out of his hands quickly, I think they can negate that pass rush. So I'm going to be on the Saints. I'm probably going to have it at a 3 to 4 unit play, depending on if Armstead is available to play. If he's not, I will probably be on the smaller side, but I still think the Saints are unequivocally the right side here.
Yeah, I love the Saints. And Marshall Cook in the chat is saying the Niners are staying in Florida. Traveling should help them, right? Yeah, it's a good move by Kyle Shanahan for sure, but it doesn't mean they're going to beat the Saints in New Orleans. I just think that everything favors the Saints. The matchup, you mentioned that Sean Payton having extra time to prepare. I mean, that's huge for an elite coach to have extra time is just enormous. The motivation. Everyone is saying that Drew Brees is done. I'm reading on Twitter, everyone's like, Drew Brees is old, he's finished, he's 40, and plus everyone's betting the Niners. So the Saints might be playing for respect here. The spread, the Saints should be at least -3. I don't think there's any questioning that, and everything backs that up. The advanced spread was -3. My number is -3. The computer actually says -4 is correct. So I think the Saints are a little bit better than the Niners, and I think I could buy that. The Vegas, like I said, everyone's betting the Niners, so everything's saying that the Saints are the right side, and it's pretty uncommon to have Drew Brees being faded like this by the public. Usually you have to pay a premium to take these quarterbacks. Like mentioned earlier with the Ravens, you have to pay extra points to bet him. That's the opposite here with Breeze. So, yeah, I mean, this is very close to being my pick of the month. The only reason it's not is because I love another game a lot more. And you're mentioning about Teron Armstead. To me, I would obviously would love Armstead to play, but even if he weren't to play, I think it's fine because Drew Brees gets rid of the ball so quickly, and Breeze normally he hates interior pressure more than edge rush. So, if the Saints were down a couple of interior linemen, I would be more concerned. But with the left tackle, even if it's against Nick Bosa, I think it's still going to be fine because Breeze just gets rid of the ball so quickly. So, yeah, I love the Saints.
Yeah, and if you're not worried about the Nick Bosa matchup, then power to you. I'm a little bit more worried about it, but you may have convinced me to bet next for you on it. I'll definitely be all over this game either way. It's going to be a good game either way, but I think the public's on the wrong side here.
Yeah, I agree. We have a question: is Lattimore healthy? He was playing, but not 100% on Thanksgiving. So the 9 days, as you mentioned, will allow him to heal up. So I'm glad we both love the Saints this week. All right, the next game is Bengals at the Browns. Line open up. Browns minus 10.5. It's down to 9. So who do you like in this game?
I am on the Bengals here. I should have realized my mistake last week betting the Jets against the Bengals with the return of Andy Dalton. I had locked in still thinking Ryan Finley was going to be the starter. I locked in on Monday, and things changed. But the Bengals defense really has stepped up more than I thought. Their offense did about what I expected against the Jets, about 22 points. But their defense held the Jets to 6. So I just think that Dalton gives the team, that little bit of that veteran presence at quarterback. He can manage the game a lot better. He has better blocking with Cordy Glenn. So that offense should be able to move the ball a little bit against the Browns. Browns aren't particularly strong against the run either. So with Joe Mixon running behind better blocking, he could start to find some success. And Mayfield has struggled this season when he's been pressured. I know the Bengals haven't been like a great sack team this year, but they do have like talent at the defensive end and on the defensive line to get pressure. So I think they might be able to get some pressure here. And another thing I'm trying to do this week is fade coaches I think are bad, and I just don't think Freddie Kitchens is a good coach. Not that I'm super confident in Zach Taylor either, but at least Taylor hasn't like repeatedly screwed his team this year, and I feel like Kitchens at times has. And how much different are the Browns than the Jets? That's my other question. Like the Browns probably have a little bit more talent. You could probably convince me that there's a lot more talent there too. But I just don't know if Kitchens can get the most out of it. I think the Bengals cover this even if the Browns win, and I don't know how motivated the Browns are going to be because they're just kind of knocked out of playoff contention a little bit. They're still alive, but that loss last week to Pittsburgh was a crushing blow.
Yeah, well, first of all, I should say that, considering your Bengals bet last week, like I thought it was the right side when Finley was in. Like, I was ready to bet the Jets when Finley was in, but then they made the quarterback switch, and it's like it sucks. Like you suffered that bad beat because they made the quarterback change, and I thought that Vegas not moving the number very much was very telling because I thought they were scared that they were going to get middled. Like if they moved that line appropriately from like 4 to pick them, they would have risked a major middle, which would have been detrimental to them. So I think that's why they didn't move the line that much. But yeah, I mean, if it was Finley, I would have been right there with you on the Jets. With this game, I think that, it just seems like there's a public misconception here for both of these teams. Like the Browns obviously are not the team people thought they were when people were saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're not even the team that won a couple games in a row because they lost Myles Garrett. Greedy Williams is probably going to be out. And Baker Mayfield suffered a hand injury when he hit it on Bud Dupree's helmet. So like, the defense isn't the same, not nearly the same without Garrett, and Baker Mayfield didn't look quite right after that hand injury, and we don't know if he's going to be 100%. On the other side, Andy Dalton is so much better than Ryan Finley. Like Dalton's not great or anything, but Finley couldn't even complete basic passes, and Dalton is at least he's proven that he could be a mediocre starting quarterback at best. Like he's like mediocre to subpar, but still that's way better than Finley. And the problem with Dalton earlier in the year is that he just didn't have the pass protection, but now he has that with Cordy Glenn back. So this Bengal team is kind of, where they should have been earlier if they had everyone healthy. I know AJ Green's still out, but they still have decent receivers. And, I think, under normal circumstances, I'd say, the Bengals are the right side, but I think something you can add to that is that the Browns are basically eliminated from the playoffs at this point because they lost last week. Now they're 5-7. They're only down 2 games in the wild card, but they're behind so many teams that it's going to be very difficult for them to come back. And it just feels like that loss to Pittsburgh is going to basically, eliminate, kind of like deflate them because they came into that wearing shirts that said Pittsburgh started it. That's like so stupid. I talked about this on the site, like, Dick Vermeil, he used to coach the Eagles, Chiefs, and Rams. He used to always talk up his opponents, like always. Like they'd be 10-3, and he'd be playing a 2-11 team, and he'd have a press conference saying, "Oh man, they have such a good receiver, and their pass rush is so good. I don't know how we're going to beat this team." It's like, you're playing a 2-11 team, dude. Like no one will buy that, but that's what he said. But like Freddie Kitchens is the opposite. Like he kind of is talking trash about like his opponent. It's so stupid. So anyway, I think the Bengals can win outright if the Browns are a no-show. It was so getting plus what is it 9? In some places, like I think the Bengals should be a 4-unit pick maybe, or maybe even more. So I love Cincinnati. I'm going to take them on the money line too.
Yeah, and I might join you on that money line bet. That'll be a fun one. Because I know my friend had a Redskins money line bet of plus 400 last week that I almost hopped in on, but did not in my horrible week of picks. And you mentioned Dick Vermeil. Another dude is always talking up teams that are much worse than his. Bill Belichick. If you listen to his press conferences about playing the Dolphins earlier for this year, he's like, "Yeah, we're focusing on the Dolphins. They're a really good team." It's like, no, they're not, Bill. We know they're not, but that's the way to do it. You never want to give a team bulletin board material. And I feel like Cleveland has failed at that every single chance they've had so far.
It just seems like Freddie Kitchens doesn't know how to do anything right. Like, he can't have a good game plan. He doesn't doesn't make great use of his talent, and he motivates the other teams to play up. And so I can't imagine him being back at this point. As like, given how disappointing the season was, I think it would be a huge mistake to bring him back. All right. Speaking of coaches being fired, Panthers at the Falcons. This line opened up Falcons -1.5. It's up to 3. And of course, Ron Rivera got fired earlier today. So first of all, what do you think about? Well, you already said that it was a mistake to fire him in season. I don't know if you wanted to expand on that. And second, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'll expand on that. I don't think, first of all, Ron Rivera deserved to be fired in season because he did get the Panthers to a Super Bowl. And, they ran into a really tough Broncos defense. That's probably the only reason that they didn't win. But I also don't think that firing Ron Rivera is the answer to the problem. Like, I understand Dave Tepper may want to bring in his own coach. And Rivera's been there for a while. And, that Super Bowl appearance was a while ago at this point. So, if you want to move on from him, that's fine. But I don't think he's the root problem there. He had a lousy quarterback playing most of the year in Kyle Allen. Maybe not lousy. He might be a solid backup, but he's not a starting caliber quarterback in this league. I don't think anyone's going to argue that after the up and down performances he's had this year. Yet he kept them competitive, and they were still in the playoff hunt until last week's loss to Washington. I don't see why he should have been fired for that one, because he almost miraculously brought the team back. And if Kyle Allen didn't miss Jarius Wright being wide open in the end zone on 4th down, I don't know if you saw that play. They absolutely would have had a shot at tying that. And I don't think he gets fired if they tie the game and come back to win. So I'm not a fan of the move to fire him now. I'm not a fan of the move to fire him in general. And mostly because of that, I like the Falcons in this game, probably for a lot. Because they just fired their coach, are probably quitting on the season. Perry Fuel's the guy they're bringing in to replace him. And Fuel was like a fine defensive coordinator for the Giants like a decade ago, I think, maybe even more. But he's not going to like motivate this team to play well. A lot of those guys have an allegiance to Rivera too. I know Cam Newton was hurt by the decision. So I'm all over the Falcons in this one, which is scary because the Falcons always come back to bite me. But they've had extra time to prepare. Dan Quinn's still fighting for his job, and they're going to be healthier after Thanksgiving not having Julio. So that's my thoughts on the whole Panthers situation, and I will be interested to see who they bring in because I'm not sure they're going to get someone who's necessarily better than Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about this Dave Tepper guy. He's said some weird. If you look at some of his quotes in the past, he said some weird things. And I mean, he's a billionaire hedge fund manager. Like, what does he know about football? And now he's making football decisions. I think this is a big mistake. Not that Rivera is a great coach or anything. Like I think he's solid, but to fire him in midseason is disrespectful, as you said, and like he was 5-3 at one point with Cam Newton not playing at all, or like he played 2 games, so he wasn't 100%. Like it was clear he was injured, and they lost those first 2 games, so like. Rivera's been 5-5 with Kyle Allen as his quarterback, which I think is pretty impressive. Like considering the DVOA has not liked them at all this year. I've brought up in the past that DVOA put them at 27 a few weeks ago. Now they're down to 28. So they're saying that there are only 5 teams in the NFL worse than the Panthers, and yet they were in playoff contention a couple weeks ago. I just think it's a big mistake. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. I just don't see the Panthers playing with much intensity here. Like, why would they play for Perry Fuel? They know he's not going to be the head coach next year. It's not like they have to impress him or anything. So, given like the midweek turmoil plus them being basically officially eliminated from the playoffs, I just don't think they're going to show up. Whereas Atlanta, like you said, they've had extra time to prepare. Julio Jones should be back. There's a chance Austin Hooper will be back too. They got back Devontae Freeman for Thanksgiving. So their offense is going to be completely healthy. It sounds like Chris Lindstrom has a chance to return too. He's been practicing. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but that's that would be a nice boost too. So DVOA ranks Atlanta ahead of Carolina. So this, under that metric, Atlanta should be more than a 3-point favorite. So I liked Atlanta before the Rivera firing. Now I love Atlanta. So this was a 2-unit pick. Now this might be like a 4 or 5-unit pick.
This was a 3 to 4 unit pick for me before the Rivera firing. So maybe I don't go crazy and bet 6 units on Atlanta, because that seems like a recipe for disaster given my track record with the Falcons this year. But I'll probably stick to the 3. Maybe I'll just stick at 4 units on this game. But it just feels so lopsided right now.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next game, Lions at the Vikings. Line open up Vikings minus 13. It's still 13. I assume this is going to be David Blau again. I think there's an outside chance that Matthew Stafford plays. I haven't seen him ruled out yet, but I think it's very unlikely that he'll play. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Lions, actually. I would assume that Stafford wouldn't play the rest of the year anyway. They have no reason to play him. Why risk further injury at this point? They're way out of everything. But the Vikings, first of all, they have Kirk Cousins at quarterback. This is the time of year he starts choking because they're in the playoff hunt. So that's got to count for something at least. But more than that, I think the spread's just a bit too high. The Vikings have been losing the time of possession battle, 3 straight games where they have not won that. They've allowed at least 377 yards of total offense in each of the past 4 games. Their secondary just hasn't played well. Xavier Rhodes has been very bad. He had some massive blunders against the Seahawks on Monday night. And I know the Vikings put up 42 on the Lions last time they played, but they're dealing with some injuries. Adam Thielen was supposed to play last week, but he didn't end up playing. If he comes back, maybe I'll change my tune on this a little bit. But Dalvin Cook's now banged up a little too. He had a fumble and then the shoulder injury. I just think that the Lions could be a little bit of an upstart here. Blau looked good on Thanksgiving. I'm not expecting that he's going to win this game or anything crazy like that, but they might be able to keep it within 2 touchdowns. Having said that, I'm not confident enough to bet this very much. I may do 1 unit on it, but I just think this line is too high for a Vikings team that has proven in recent weeks that they're maybe not as good as their record says they are.
Yeah, I think this line is definitely too high. Everything says the Vikings should be favored between 10 and 12.5. So 13 is a little high. It's not like 13 is a key number or anything, but it's still a touch too high. So at first I was like, oh, I'm going to take the Lions, but then kind of remembered that David Blau, despite him playing pretty well on Thanksgiving, is just a rookie. He's making his second start. And he's going to be going up against Mike Zimmer. So I know Minnesota's secondary has been terrible this year. And Xavier Rhodes just having, who is it, David Moore just running by him on Monday night. Just he looks so slow trying to cover him. Like he's clearly injured. But still, it's Blau versus Zimmer. And I think I'm going to side with Zimmer on this one. I'm not going to bet this game because like I said, this line's too high. But And plus the Vikings are banged up. Like that is definitely a thing. But I just feel like Blau's going to make some mistakes. He's a smart guy. He's accurate. I watched every single preseason snap of his ahead of the Thanksgiving game. And that led me to bet the Lions. But I just think that this is going to be a tough one for him. So I'm going to be on the Vikings, but no confidence in this at all.
All right, and I am no longer confident in my pick, so I will not bet this. I will stick with the Lions, but I don't see a reason to really bet this one. And I think this may set a show record for the longest it took us to disagree on a pick.
I know. I was wondering about that if we would disagree. So yeah, we made it. This is what the 8th game on the slate. So we had 7 agreements and 0 disagreements. Kenny and I had 1 week last year where we had 15 agreements in a row, and then the Monday night game was our only disagreement. So I thought that was funny. So hopefully that bodes well for both of us. All right. The next game is Dolphins at the Jets. Line open up. Jets -7.5. It's down to 6 or actually it's down to 5.5. So who do you like in this game?
So this is another game I'm not super wild about. I think this is too much of a toss-up to bet. I'm probably going to take the Dolphins, though, for office pool purposes. I just think the Jets are no longer having a shot at the playoffs. Not that they had much of one to begin with anyway, but if they had won against the Bengals last week, you could have argued for momentum sake. But Brian Flores has been so good, and you mentioned it earlier in the podcast. They have no business having 3 wins. And I saw Jim Nagy, the dude who runs the Senior Bowl in Mobile, tweet, or I think it's Mobile, I can't remember. He tweeted out that Brian Flores should get Coach of the Year consideration. I agree with him, actually. It's like he'll never win it, but I mean, come on. This Dolphins team, like you said, is so bad, just roster-wise, and Flores has been able to squeeze 3 wins out of them. And Chad O'Shea has them playing well in the red zone, too. Let's not overlook what he's been able to do with the red zone on the offense and the Patriots' regression in the red zone as well. But I mean, there are so many factors in this game that I don't like because the Jets have the better roster by far, but the worst coaching. So I don't like picking teams that are kind of polar opposites. And then the Dolphins are coming off a massive win against the Eagles, and they're having to go on the road to play in a game that could be a revenge game for the Jets, but the Jets could come up completely flat knowing their season is over. And also the Dolphins defense is still kind of terrible, so I don't really want to pick them. But for office pool purposes, I am on the Dolphins for +5.5, but I'm probably not going to bet this because both of these teams constantly have screwed me this year.
Yeah, so we're 8 of 9 agreements, and pretty much betting wise too. I'm not going to bet this game, but I would take the Dolphins for the reason what you said. You know, the Jets didn't have playoff chances, but Sam Darnold was talking up his playoff chances, and then he decided to go out and then hook up with some girls, and then he lost that game, and now they don't have a chance to make the playoffs. I would take the Dolphins. They're just better coached. They have terrible talent. But Fitzpatrick's playing well. Like I can see Fitzpatrick having a meltdown at some point. Like we haven't seen that yet, which is weird. Like we haven't seen the 4 interception Fitzpatrick game that causes him to get benched. Like I feel like it's going to happen sooner or later, but it just hasn't happened yet. And with the Jets potentially not having Jamal Adams, I think that's a huge deal. Fitzpatrick should play well again, I guess. So I'm picking the Dolphins for the first time since week 2. So that's nice, I guess. We have a question from Tony. Why does Charlie Campbell hate Bob? I don't know if you watched Twin Peaks, but Bob was an evil spirit who killed girls. So, I could see why Charlie would hate Bob. I don't want to speak for Charlie, but I think that's a good reason. Jose asks, could you please make a win or lose pick after you're against the spread in general analysis? I'm not good with computer art, so I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe someone can volunteer to do that. I guess. I don't know. Was Rick Smith leaving negative stuff about Bob? This is Bill O'Brien, obviously. To Charlie Campbell, leaking negative stuff. No. Bill O'Brien's an awful coach. Like, I don't know why Charlie would need a reason to hate him. Like, we've talked about how bad Bill O'Brien is. Like, he's just a terrible coach. Again, I don't want to speak for Charlie, but I think you and I would agree that Bill O'Brien is just terrible.
Yeah, he just like on the field, he's able to get the team to a certain spot every year. So he deserves a little credit for that. But some of his coaching decisions leave a lot to be desired. And then the fact that he's basically also running the front office and has made some questionable moves makes it even more questionable with what he's doing. So I think a lot of it stems from that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, the last of the early games, Colts at the Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -2. It's up to 3, even though there's a ton of public money on the Colts. So who do you like in this game?
Oh, we're fading the public dog. We're going with the Bucks. I mean, the Colts, they have not been good for the last 5 weeks. They beat the Jaguars pretty bad, pretty good actually, but the Jaguars have been pretty bad for the last 4 weeks, so it's kind of hard to give them a lot of credit there. And Brissett hasn't progressed, holding the team back. And meanwhile, the Bucks and Winston seem to be kind of finding their groove a little bit. They have a couple back-to-back wins. Now they're at home playing a Colts team that's kind of fallen out of the running in the AFC South. Not that they're entirely out. They're 6-6. They still have a shot if they can win this one. I just don't know if they have the firepower right now with T.Y. Hilton banged up. Eric Ebron's now on IR. Devin Funchess may eventually come back, but I'm not sure if he is. Marlon Mack is questionable for this game. So Brissett, in many ways, has not been great and hasn't progressed. He hasn't had a lot of talent around him, though. So I think that's been tough. Barring Jameis Winston having another meltdown, I don't see the Colts winning this game on the road. So I'm going to stick with the Bucks for a couple units here. I like them -3. And I would bet more on this one, but I do think the Colts are still a good team and have a good roster. Just it depends a little bit on the injury report, if anyone's coming back.
Yeah, the injury report's huge. It doesn't sound like Hilton will be back because Frank Reich was talking about how he's hopeful that Hilton will play the rest of the year, which kind of doesn't sound good for him this week. And if Hilton's not back, and Chester Rogers got hurt too last week, and then you have Eric Ebron, as you said, is out too. Like outside of Jack Doyle and Zach Pascal, they were throwing to guys that I'd never heard of before, like Marcus Johnson, this other guy with a weird name. I forget what his name was. It's like I wrote it down somewhere. I don't have it. It's Ashton Doolin. I don't know who the hell that is. So and plus Brissett doesn't even look completely healthy. It looks like he's laboring a little bit. He's not even running. And then the Colts have a weakness on defense. Like I love their front seven and their safeties are good too, but their cornerbacks are so bad that they've allowed so many big performances to receivers this week and this year. And now they have to play Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It just seems like a bad situation for them. So considering that and, all the stuff like with the public dog stuff, everyone's on Indianapolis for some reason, which is really surprising to me. I thought people would be on Tampa. Tampa's played a lot better recently. Their offensive line is healthy now. It wasn't, when they got blown out by Carolina in London, like they were missing 2 linemen. Now their line's healthy. And their defensive backs are playing better. I made fun of Jamal Dean a few weeks ago. Like he looked so slow against Seattle. He was terrible in that game. But he's played better lately, and they have Carlton Davis healthy, and it seems like the team's coming together, and they're building something for 2020. And Bruce Arians hasn't playing well despite him shuffling the running backs. Like I so much Ronald Jones and DraftKings, by the way, last week. It was so frustrating to see Peyton Barber scoring a lot. But anyway, yeah, I like Tampa quite a bit. I have him for at 3 units. So yeah, I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, no, just another fact to consider too. Adam Vinatieri has been bad in recent weeks. I know he had a kick blocked last week, and he was kicking some long field goals, but he's had his share of struggles. Also, I don't understand why Frank Reich kept having him attempt long field goals last week against the Titans. It just felt like a recipe for disaster. And a lot of them, it didn't look like Vinatieri thought he could make because they were low line drives. So just something to consider moving forward, Frank Reich, if you're listening to this somehow. Maybe don't trust Vinatieri from that far away right now. As someone who has a picture of Adam Vinatieri slightly off screen on that wall back there, we love Adam, but let's let him go out on top.
Yeah, no, that was frustrating because the Colts were ready to go up 20-17, and then they had that blocked kick, and the game was just over. So, question from Andrew: is Devontae Parker an elite receiver in a good situation? I don't know if he's elite, but like he's very talented, and he was just not coached well. And And to be fair, like he was slacking off under Adam Gase, and maybe that's Gase's fault for not motivating him. But like Parker seems motivated for a change, and yeah, I mean, like he's a great talent for sure. He's a first round pick for a reason, and seems to be coming together for him. You know.
Yeah, and it's the Chad O'Shea factor again. He's working with the receivers. He was, I think, he was a receivers coach in New England, so he's helped Parker get better. I think Parker's just a very good receiver overall. I don't think he'll ever be elite, but solid skill set. He was a first round pick for a reason, so it's good to see him living up to that.
Yeah. DJ says Bill O'Brien just had a signature win, though. I mean, yeah, I guess, but look at who the Patriots lost to last year. They lost at Jacksonville. They lost at Detroit. They lost at Tennessee, and they lost at Miami. None of those teams made the playoffs last year. So, I don't think it's a huge deal to beat the Patriots in the regular season. Now, if you beat them in the playoffs, yeah, now we're talking. But, 3 or 4 times a year, the Patriots are going to lay an egg just like every other team in the NFL. So I don't think it's a huge deal, right?
Yeah, I'll give Bill O'Brien a little bit of credit because it looked like the game plan against New England was really good, targeting the secondary playmakers on offense and, defensively just not letting the receivers separate. But, also, even if this is a signature win, it's one signature win in how many years? And you can point to some other ones, but the lack of playoff success with a somewhat talented roster over the last couple of years and the decision to trade Jadeveon Clowney for pennies on the dollar, again, just some of the reasons that Bill O'Brien is maybe not as good as he's portrayed to be.
Yeah, he beat a team that had to take 2 planes because of the flu. And it only took him 13 weeks to realize that Duke Johnson is the better running back. But I guess better late than never, right? Am I likely to have a Cordy Glenn or Snacks Harrison jersey? It's definitely Glenn. I've been talking about him all year. I should order a Glenn jersey at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing not to like about Cordy Glenn. When I used to write about the Buffalo Bills when he was on the Bills. So, Cordy Glenn's a really good player who just never has really been noticed.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Before we get to the late games, I should say that we're sponsored by DraftKings. So you can go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, to get a bonus with your first deposit, which allows you to play contests for free. So you get to play for free and help this podcast. So why not do it? All right, the first of the late afternoon games, the Chargers at the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew will start this game. Chargers open up -1. They're up to 3. Looks like a decent amount of public actions on the Chargers, but nothing crazy. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Jaguars. I don't get why there's action on the Chargers and why the line's moving so much. I mean, first of all, the Chargers find ridiculous ways to lose every week. It's like I finally have started paying attention to that because last year seemed like an anomaly where they actually found ways to win. It's amazing how they lose. Like they lost on a pass interference call with 8 seconds left and then a field goal. Like that's unheard of. How does that happen? So that's one reason I'm not on the Chargers. The other is you mentioned the return of Gardner Minshew. I think Minshew can spark this offense. Nick Foles was terrible for the team, and I was wrong. I thought that Foles coming back would spark them on offense, and it really didn't. He didn't look comfortable. He didn't look comfortable moving. He couldn't. In fact, he really couldn't move in the pocket. So I think Minshew, we saw it last week against Tampa Bay. He can move around a bit more, and he can really find ways to beat defenses. I think Leonard Fournette's going to be able to run on the Chargers. They've allowed 84-plus rushing yards in 5 of their last 7 games. And I think the Chargers may quit, too, because they just lost to the Broncos. They're now 4-8. Any outside chance they had of making the playoffs is gone. And the Jaguars kind of quit last week against the Bucs. But they should bounce back because there is a notable change, one that's positive in Minshew. So I'm going to be on the Jaguars. I'm going to probably be on this for 2 or 3 units, especially with the line possibly moving up to 3 if it hasn't already. So I'm a big fan of the Jaguars in this one.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. So I have him for. I don't know if I'm going to have him. What the unit count is going to be. It depends on the injury report. Like I would like to see Miles Jack return from injury because Jacksonville's linebackers are just horrible without him. But yeah, I mean, like, what's the motivation here for the Chargers? You just said that they just suffered yet another gut-wrenching loss to the Broncos that eliminated them from the playoffs, and now they have to fly across the country to battle the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have mailed in some games recently, but it seems like they play better with Minshew. They play with more energy. They seem to like him a lot. The fans love him, obviously, so they're going to be excited to see him. So I just think the Jaguars are going to have more motivation to win this game. Talked about the betting action. The Chargers are receiving some money, and I think the spread's off. So the Chargers being -3 just seems wrong. Like the advanced spread was a pick 'em. DVWay says this should be a pick 'em. I think the Chargers should be favored by like 1 or 2, maybe, but like 3 is the most prominent key number in the NFL. So yeah, I like the Jaguars a lot. Like I said, I'm just going to wait for the injury report.
Yeah, Miles Jack definitely is going to play an important role there. I think if Minshew wins too, we're going to see the Jaguars maybe have to move on from Nick Foles. So I'll be interested to see where he might end up if they have to trade him. Maybe the Chicago Bears will call him, or maybe we can do some ridiculous 5-team quarterback trade where Nick Foles and Jared Goff and all these dudes who are underperforming for their teams get moved. That's like my pipe dream Madden type fantasy.
Yeah, you just answered TJ's questions, like where does Foles go? Yeah, I feel like he's going to be the Eagles' backup eventually, not next year. I just think that some teams are going to be willing to make him a starter. And I don't think that, judging Foles on this year is fair because he suffered a collarbone injury, and I don't think he's 100%. So, I feel like he's going to play better next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that injury definitely seemingly had an impact on him. Maybe if the Eagles get frustrated enough with Carson Wentz, we could throw him into some random deal to get Foles back as the starter in Philly if I'm really getting crazy now. So yeah.
That'd be wild. All right. So Chiefs at the Patriots. Line open up Patriots -3.5. It's down to 3. This is my pick of the month. So I hope you agree with me.
Yeah, it has to be the Patriots, right? Like there's no way this can't be the Patriots. The Chiefs are going to be a public dog, I would imagine. And the Patriots looked horrible against the Texans, and I'm willing to admit that the Chiefs are a team that would match up well against the Patriots. And Patrick Mahomes is the exact type of quarterback that's been able to beat them so far this year in Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. He's mobile, he can make any throw, can extend plays to beat defenses. But the Patriots bounce back pretty well from losses. I think they're frustrated enough that they're going to make some changes. And Brady and the Patriots are 3-2 against Andy Reid's Chiefs in their last 5 meetings, and they're 2-1 overall in Foxborough in those contests. So I think that's a massive factor there. But the biggest thing is the Patriots were impacted by the flu on Sunday night in Houston. Like I know we talked about it a little bit, but I do think that you could see it, especially with Marcus Cannon at right tackle. I'm pretty sure he was one of the dudes that had the flu. If I'm wrong, then he just had a terrible game. But we're going to see guys be closer to full health, full strength, and really be able to, get back and prove that they were just having a bad week last week and that they're not over the hill. And anytime that someone says, "Oh, the Patriots are dead," they bounce back. And I know I'm a New England fan. I grew up a New England fan, but like this game just feels like New England is going to cover this one. Like this is the spot that they love to respond to, Tom Brady especially.
Yeah, do you know the numbers? They're kind of crazy. Like Brady off a loss in his career, 41-19 against the spread. If you take out games where he's been favored by 7 or more off a loss, he's 35-8 against the spread. Like that's just insane. So if you back the Chiefs, you're going to have to go against that. That seems crazy to me. So I think this game kind of mirrors the Niners Saints game, except the Patriots are going to have even more motivation because they're coming off a loss. You have everyone on TV saying either the Patriots are done or Tom Brady's done. Like it's one or the two, maybe both in some instances. Susie Colbert, ahead of the Monday night game, she asked the panel, and I can't believe I heard this. She said, "Can the Patriots beat the Chiefs?" They're favored over the Chiefs. Like, what do you mean? Can they beat the Chiefs? Like I said, they took 2 planes to Houston because they had the flu. Like you said, they're going to be healthier. And I just think if you look at like all the defensive segments, so you have like the Chiefs pass defense, the Chiefs run defense, Patriots pass defense, the Patriots run defense. Which of those 4 is the weakest? Like, it's obvious, right?
Yeah, it's which is the weakest of those?
Yeah.
Chiefs run defense.
Chiefs run defense, like by a mile. Like, and I just I can't get Belichick out of my head talking about the Chinese war philosophy in those NFL Network clips where he talks about knowing your strengths and taking advantage of weaknesses. Like, I have to believe that he's just going to pound Sony Michel up the middle like 40 times. And the Raiders wanted to do that with Josh Jacobs, but they couldn't because they were down big. But the Patriots defense should be able to hold back Mahomes. Mahomes had some sketchy throws last week, and like he got away with a couple of should have been interceptions, as Kenny would say. Hopefully Kenny's still listening. Mahomes got lucky, and I think Belichick has to be looking at that film and telling his players, like, look, Mahomes is going to make a couple of these throws a game. Make sure you get on them and intercept them. And I think that I think the Patriots will take advantage of that. Also, someone, I wish I saw this comment. Someone was talking about how, here we go. It's on screen. Yeah. Andy Reid is kind of saving place for this game. I don't think so, because this game doesn't mean nearly as much to the Chiefs as it does to the Patriots. Like, the Chiefs are kind of locked into 3 or 4. So they don't really have much upward mobility, and they have the AFC West locked up. So they don't really have much motivation to win this game. Like, I think if Andy Reid is saving plays, it's going to be for the playoffs, because he's going to need them against the Ravens or the Patriots in the playoffs. So I think that Reid is going to use those plays in the playoffs, not this game. Patriots are still playing for the 1 seed. They have the Bills right behind them. Like, if they lose this game and Buffalo somehow beats Baltimore, like, all of a sudden it's going to be super close. So the Patriots have more incentive to win this game, on top of motivation. Brady is going to be in FU mode because he's hearing that he's done. So, I mean, this is like a no-brainer 8-unit pick. And also I didn't talk about the spread. I think the spread's too low. My numbers say it should be -4.5. Computer says -4. DVOA says -3.5, and the advanced line was -3.5. So all the Patriots need to do is win by field goal to push, and then they probably win by more than 3. So yeah, I love New England.
Yeah, no, I do too. I just think it's a no-brainer. They just bounce back so well. And also, there is someone in the chat who's telling me that I'm an arrogant ass Patriots fan. Like that. Ironically, I'm not super arrogant about the Patriots. I have a lot of friends who are like really hyper into the Patriots. I just think they're the right pick this week. So we'll see what happens. But there's definitely a way I could see the Patriots winning this game.
I'm looking for that comment. I don't see it, but no, you don't strike me as an arrogant Patriots fan at all.
No, I just acknowledge that I've been rooting for them since I was a kid. Like, I mean, if I was arrogant about it, I would never pick against them. I picked against them this year, so yeah, it's further back up there. But I don't really care. I don't care what people think.
All right, next game, Steelers at the Cardinals. This line opened up Steelers -2.5. There's some 3s and there's some 2.5, so you kind of get what you want, really. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Steelers. I know the Cardinals played horribly last week. I think one of the things I didn't really know about going into that game was Kyler Murray's hamstring injury that popped up late in the week, and I think that did have an impact on him because he didn't look comfortable in the pocket. Looked like he was trying to avoid being hit, scramble out of there far too quickly, and didn't really read the field very well. I just think the Steelers' defense is so good, and they've just been able to hold quarterbacks to barely being able to do anything. I think 200-plus passing yard performances in their past 9 games. That's what the Steelers' defense has allowed on to the players they faced. I think they'll be able to get some pressure on Murray, really make him uncomfortable. I don't love this game being a road game for the Steelers, but I think that they have the motivation to win. They're still in a wild card spot. They don't have anything to play for with their first round picks. They traded for Fitzpatrick. So I'll be on the Steelers -3 for 1 to 2 units. As long as their defense is playing well and they're playing opponents like the Cardinals or the Browns, I'll probably be on them if the spread's reasonable.
Yeah, I guess we'll have our second disagreement, but I'm not going to bet this game. I don't really like. There are a lot of conflicting things. Like I feel like the Steelers might be flat after beating Cleveland. Suddenly like a big rival for them. But on the other hand, they're going to be playing on the road, like you said. But there are going to be so many Steeler fans in the crowd, so that could maybe motivate them. And then you talked about Kyler Murray's hamstring, which is, it sucked. Like you had your Bengals last week where you locked that in. I had my Cardinals where I locked that in. And then news broke that Murray had that hamstring, and he practiced fully. So I stuck with it. Obviously I had to, but like for the site, I said, stick with it, and it didn't work out. And it did seem to affect them, but the offensive line was so bad. They just couldn't protect them at all. And, against Pittsburgh's front, it just seems like such a big disadvantage. Then on the other hand, I think this line might be a little too low. The advanced spread was Steelers -1. DBY says it should be a pick 'em. So, no, the advanced spread was Cardinals -1.5. Like this line moved 4.5 points based on 1 week's worth of results. Like I think that's ridiculous. Like, but then again, if Murray's hurt and his hamstring's not 100%, then the Cardinals won't stand a chance. So, I'm going to pass on this one, but I guess I'll take the Cardinals.
Yeah, and you convinced me not to bet this one. I may put a unit on the Steelers, depending on how I'm feeling. This is probably one of my least favorite games of the week anyway. Just sticking with the Steelers because of their defense. But there are many other games on the slate that are better than this one.
Yeah, for sure. Including this next one. I'm wondering if you like this one a lot like I do. Titans at the Raiders. The sign opened up Titans -1. It's up to 3. Lots of public action on Tennessee. So who do you like here?
I feel like the Raiders are due for a bounce back. Especially they were blown out by the Jets, then blown out by the Chiefs. John Gruden needs this team to bounce back. They're 6-6. They're still hypothetically alive in the playoff race, but they're treading water at this point at best. So, but I think that this is a winnable game for the Raiders. They're at home. The Black Hole's a tough place to play. I know Ryan Tannehill has been excellent for the Titans. They're 5-1 under his watch. So that's definitely been a major upgrade over Marcus Mariota. But the Titans may look ahead to that game against the Texans that's coming up. That could be something that distracts them in this one. And they may look at the Raiders the last couple of weeks and say, hey, these guys are going to quit. But I can't imagine the Raiders quitting under John Gruden. I think if Derek Carr can really effectively manage this game against the Titans defense, they run the ball, they control time of possession. They can get some pressure on Tannehill. Max Crosby's played well in recent weeks. Cleveland Ferrell is still the number 4 overall pick too. I know he hasn't been as good as Crosby, but I think the Raiders can possibly win this game. I think the result is either side by a field goal. That's the most likely result. So I'll take Raiders +3. Take it for a few units. I think they'll try to keep the postseason hopes alive, try to win at home, and I think Ryan Tannehill's got to be due for a tough outing at some point, right?
Yeah, for sure. Most of his success has come at home against bad teams as the starter. He's only played on the road twice since taking over as the starter. His first game, he got blown out at Carolina, which, back then it looked like, all right, Carolina's a good team, right? That was the last time Carolina won, was against Tennessee. His second road game was this past week at Indianapolis. The Colts were up 17-7 in the third quarter. And then Brissett threw a bad interception. Then there was that blocked field goal for a touchdown. And then Brissett threw another bad interception. So, like, Tannehill, he didn't make any mistakes, but he didn't play that well. So I think he's definitely due for some regression, like you said. And I just feel like the Raiders match up well against Tennessee, given the injuries that Tennessee has. So they're already down Malcolm Butler, who, he wasn't great or anything, but still better than his backup. And then Adoree Jackson got hurt last week. So Tennessee could be down 2 of its top 3 cornerbacks, which is a big deal against the Raiders. The Raiders have some passing talent with Tyra Williams and Darren Waller. So I think Oakland matches up well against Tennessee if Jackson's going to be out. Motivation, you mentioned that Tennessee might be looking at the Houston, and they could also be looking backward to Indianapolis. Like, they never beat the Colts, and they finally did. And they're playing for the division next week. So I think they could overlook Oakland. The spread is wrong too. The advanced spread was Tennessee -1. So this line moved 2 points to a key number, which just seems bizarre. DVOA says this should be a pick 'em. So this line's inflated based on what happened recently, and I love fading recent news. So it just seems like Oakland is a great value overall. And then I mentioned the public action. Public loves Tennessee. It's like the public is backing Ryan Tannehill as a road favorite. Like, this is not Jeff Driscoll type obvious play. Still, could you imagine 2 months ago being told that the public is going to be pounding the hell out of Ryan Tannehill as a road favorite? Like, you'd be like, all right, can I sign up for the other side? Can I bet the other team as quickly as possible? So, I think under normal circumstances, Oakland might be my top play of the week. But I just love the Patriots and Saints so much, but I'm going to take the Raiders for 5 units.
Yeah, I think this one hypothetically should be easy money as well, and it's definitely one of the better games of the week. They got to get some wins for that Oakland fan base at home, like especially after the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, the Seahawks at the Rams Sunday night. The line open up Seahawks -2.5 is down to 1. Lots of public money on Seattle. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Seahawks. Both teams are overrated, but one team has Russell Wilson. Like that's about the gist of my argument. I mean, Jared Goff threw the ball short against the Cardinals, and they crushed them on offense. But the Cardinals just were not right that whole game. They couldn't possess the ball, do anything, and they really offered minimal resistance to the Rams. I know the Rams are going to have some motivation because a win will keep them in the wild card hunt, but Seattle may relish a chance to knock off the Rams and keep pace with the 49ers in that NFC West battle, especially if the 49ers lose to the Saints, like we are both anticipating may happen. So I think the Seahawks are going to have some motivation to do that. And though the Rams have always played close against the Seahawks, I just think the Seahawks have the overall better team. So Russell Wilson will stake his claim for the MVP, though Lamar Jackson still has the inside track on. I'll go Seahawks, but I'm not sure I'm going to really bet this one. I might put a unit on it. I'm not super confident in this, though.
Yeah, I saw a stat today on Twitter. The Seahawks are the first team in NFL history to be 10-2 or better and not outscore their opponents by more than 3 points per game. Their average margin of victory is 3 points exactly. Like they've outscored the opposition by 36 points through 12 games. Like how's that happen? How are they 10-2? Like they might be the luckiest team we've ever seen. And Nick Costos from Sports Illustrated had a funny tweet last night where he said the Seahawks have that Buffalo Wild Wings button where like they could press it and then just absurd things happen. Like he was saying that we're tied with the Vikings. Let's press this button. Okay, Dalvin Cook and Stephon Diggs get injured. We're not covering against the Vikings. Let's press the button. Oh, the Vikings missed an extra point. Like just weird things happen in these Seattle games. And I want to fade them. Like I want to keep losing money on Russell Wilson. I think Seattle is my worst handicap team this year. I think I'm like 2-9-1 against the spread in their games. It's just awful. So I'm absolutely not betting this game. But I'm actually going to side with Seattle because as much as I don't like Seattle, I hate the Rams more. The Rams offensive line is so terrible. And I think with, Jadeveon Clowney, the first time they played the Seahawks, the Rams, Jadeveon Clowney wasn't, completely in shape yet. And Ziggy Ansah wasn't healthy. And now they're going to be healthy. Like Ansah is had a good game last night, and Clowney is looking unstoppable. So I really like them against the Rams offensive line. I know the Rams didn't have Jalen Ramsey either, but Russell Wilson just spreads the ball around so much that I don't think it matters. Like you can take away Tyler Lockett all you want, and the Vikings even did that on Monday night. Like Lockett saw 2 targets, he caught no passes, and yet the Seahawks still scored 37 points. So I'm gonna take Russell Wilson in prime time. I'm gonna stop being stubborn and just go with the flow, I guess. So I'm not gonna bet this game like I said, but I'm gonna take Seattle.
Yeah, it's so hard to bet against Russell Wilson, like you said. I mean, like it looked like the Vikings were like no doubt going to cover in that game, and it did not happen. That Dan Bailey missed extra point was very sad thing to watch happen because that's when all the hope of anything positive happening in that game flew out the window. But if he can get massive passes to David Moore, he doesn't need Tyler Lockett, which is ridiculous to say, but it's kind of true.
Yeah. And I'm glad they kicked that field goal at the end that the Seahawks did, because otherwise we would have been so upset by that extra point, but it ended up not mattering. Like, so whatever. All right, Monday night, Giants at the Eagles. The sign open up. Eagles -8.5 is down. It's up to 9. Looks like still 8.5 in some places. So who do you like in this game? There's equal action.
I like the Eagles, I guess. I mean, neither of these teams has played well lately. My argument for this is going to be pretty simple and pretty concise. I think Doug Peterson has the coaching edge on Pat Shurmur. I think if the Eagles are fully healthy and get Jordan Howard back, and Lane Johnson's healthy and Alshon Jeffrey's healthier, they have the talent to match up with the Giants. And the Eagles have way more to play for. The Giants, they're fighting for that second pick in the draft, which could end up being Chase Young if a quarterback goes number 1 overall. Massive for them. And the Eagles, if they win, they keep pace with Dallas in the division at the very least. And with Dallas playing on Thursday, they'll know what they need to do. Either way, it's the same as last week. If Dallas wins, then the Eagles know, hey, we have to win to keep pace. If Dallas loses, then they know, hey, if we win, we're tied with them. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles. I don't know how much I'm going to bet on this game. As of right now, it's nothing. But if I get desperate, like I was last week, I will probably bet on this game.
Nice. Yeah. So there's one thing that's keeping me from betting the Giants like kind of heavily here, and it's Daniel Jones's injury. Like Jones got hurt last week, apparently, and it sounds like he's going to play, but he might be limited. Otherwise, I would like the Giants a lot because if you look at this rivalry, like these games are always close. Like except for the Thursday night game last week, because the Thursday night game always benefits the better team. Since 2015, the margin of victory in these games have been 3-3, 5-5, 5-5, and like. These teams have not been close. Like maybe that one year the Giants made the playoffs, but the Giants have been terrible ever since. And the Eagles and Giants always play close. And like this is gonna be the Giants Super Bowl. Like they would love nothing more to knock the Eagles out of the playoffs. Like they would love that. And the way the Eagles are playing, like their secondary is just hot garbage, and it just feels like even if the Giants are down by like 10 or 14, like they should be able to throw a backdoor touchdown. But like I said, my concern is that Daniel Jones might not be healthy, and that could really impact this game. So I'm going to bet the Giants like at a very low unit count, maybe like 1 or 2 at most. Even if this were like Eli Manning, I would like the Giants more because, Eli Manning's terrible, but, he always seems to show up in these games. He always seems to screw over the Eagles. Like, trust me, like I have so many Eagle friends because I live right outside of Philly. In beautiful Feasterville. Like they always dread playing the Giants because the Giants like always seem to screw up the Eagles, and the vice versa too. When the Giants are really good and the Eagles stink, the Eagles always seem to screw up the Giants. Like it's one of those rivalries, and I think this is going to be a close game.
Yeah, I totally get the case for that. I was pretty torn on this one. Again, one of my least favorite picks of the week. The only reason I'm sticking with the Eagles, even at that number, is just because they have so much more to play for. But I could easily imagine a world in which Daniel Jones plays just fine, doesn't turn the ball over, isn't hurt, and the Giants come out and cover this and possibly win outright. I doubt they'll win outright, but I could definitely see a close game.
Yeah, I think this would be like a 3 or 6 point game. But yeah, I mean, if Jones is hurt, then all bets are off. TJ says the Giants have no motivation to win. I disagree. I think they would love to beat the Eagles. Like these teams hate each other so much. Like this would make their season. And like it's not like the players are playing for the second pick. I'm sure the front office would love it if they're going to stick around. So yeah. All right. Who you kind of mentioned Chase Young. Who should the Giants draft if they get the first or second pick? If they have the second pick and Joe Burrow is off the board, I think it's a no-brainer. Chase Young. If it's the first pick, I think they can trade it to a team wanting to get Joe Burrow because they can basically auction the pick off to the Dolphins or the Bengals, or is there another team? Maybe the Broncos if Drew Lock is terrible these last 4 games. Anyone else like can you think of? So.
The only teams I can think of are like the Chargers or the Titans, but they'd have to move up pretty significantly to do it. And, they may end up with veteran options and drafting guys later.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we have seen it before. Like the Eagles moved up twice to get Wentz, so like they could do it. Potentially, but it'll be tough. But yeah, I mean, it's Chase Young. Like their defense is so bad, and like their secondary is awful. But Chase Young's pressure should be able to help the secondary a lot. I assume this is a fantasy question. Darnold or Daniel Jones? Considering Jones is hurt, I would pick Darnold in fantasy. Do you agree?
Yeah, and Darnold's playing the Dolphins, so he should throw for a couple touchdowns. But it's the Jets, so it's tough to gauge that. But always go with the healthier player.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker, I'll be tweeting out my picks. People will tell me that I'm stupid every time I get them wrong, so that's always enjoyable. Stay tuned for that stuff. Rigo's covering the Redskins and their surprising winning streak and their game against the Packers. And over at NBC Sports Boston, got a lot of Patriots content brewing before that big game against the Chiefs. That should be a good one, and I'm wondering what's going to happen in that one. I'm still thinking the Patriots win, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love how like people will tell you you're stupid if you're wrong, but they won't tell you you're smart if you're right. Kind of, let's. Not that I care. I don't even check. I don't check Twitter because like I feel like I go down the rabbit hole. Like there's too many things. But I do check Facebook. So if you guys want to interact with me, I answer everything on Facebook. So check that out if you guys want. Yeah. Otherwise, at walserfootball.com, updated picks throughout the week. Updated fantasy rankings throughout the week, and I'm going to have an updated 2020 NFL mock draft Wednesday morning. So look for that, especially with the draft season about to approach within 4 weeks. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, otherwise, I'll talk to you next week, and good luck with your Week 14 picks.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you then.
All right, bye.